Does Joe Biden's IRS audit proposal raise accountability and privacy issues? Let's do it.
Somehow you turn around and everything feels upside down. Look back and say to me, I don't know what I've been missing. Oh, the same place, the same things look different somehow. Oh, the fine.
Biden administration seeks to monitor all bank accounts as part of the lovely $3.5 trillion spending package. Senate Democrats vote to make taxpayers vulnerable to the IRS targeting and harassment? Possibly. Biden tries to let the IRS snoop on your bank account? Maybe. So what is Joe Biden proposing here? Joe Biden is proposing requiring financial institutions to report to the IRS all transactions of all businesses and personal accounts worth more than $600. You do a transaction over $600, it's going to be reported to the IRS. So I want to look at both sides of this. Supporters of the proposal, which include most congressional Democrats in the Biden administration, some people on that side don't like it. They say it's necessary to help finance the spending packages and would help raise hundreds of billions of dollars over the next decade. And I found a quote from a gentleman that I think encapsulates the other side. He's pretty passionate. Mike, he's obviously not a fan of the bill. Take a look at this. Says, in other words, step all over my rights to privacy, spying on my financial transactions. What's next? Deciding that I can't, buy at the grocery store. Maybe I don't need the new car or that part of my motorcycle for my motorcycle. Wow. Monitoring gun and ammo purchases would be much easier, as well as campaign contributions. Then what? Maybe a midnight visit from a federal SWAT team because my policies don't agree with her, brain dead, and the Obamas. Am I suddenly going to be targeted as a danger to the community because I own too many guns, buy too much ammo, and train too often? It's already a law that any cash transaction or bank deposit of $10,000 or more requires a Form 8300 to be filed with the IRS, which was supposed to stifle drug dealers, but just opened the door to more creative ways of banking. So this cannot stand. Everyone needs to call, write, email their representatives and senators and put a stop to this invasion of rights. Maybe remind them that a few $100 billion is not going to offset the insanely unnecessary spending in this obscure $3.5 trillion bill that is going to be dumped on the trillions already in play. Don't let this wannabe dictator take anything else away from you. Mike was very passionate about that side. So, let's take a look at the plan a little bit, top line it. Joe Biden administration, plans to use taxpayer monies to give the IRS $80 billion over 10 years, which will end financial privacy for Americans. Maybe. Will it? Is this a good idea, people? What do you think? Bottom line, in my opinion, the big ballers will just take their monies offshore. What do you think? Oddly enough, this is interesting. When I was doing my research, the $80 billion figure in the tax compliance mention is the very same value of all the equipment left in Afghanistan. That's interesting. So is this more proof it's not about revenue for the Treasury, but rather tighter control of the citizenry by the elites, who won't pay tax? I don't know. Just a thought. I'm all in for the IRS doing the job, correctly and catching people taking advantage of the tax code. However, does this encourage the ultra-wealthy to take their monies offshore and invade people's privacy rights? Seems to be a gray area. So, do the people with high-paying jobs already pay a lot of taxes? I was researching this. Take a look at this chart. From the IRS, the top 1% pay 40% of the bills. The top 5% pay 60% of the bills. And the top 10% pay 71% of the bills. And this chart, the latest government data shows that in 2018, the top 1% of income earners, those who earn more than $540,000, earned 21% of all U.S. income while paying 40% of all federal income taxes. The top 10% earned 48% of the income and paid 71% of the federal income taxes. So over time, high-income Americans have shouldered a larger and larger share of the cost of the government. I'm getting taken to the cleaners. So even the 2017 tax cuts, reviled by the political left, reduced tax bills for the lowest income Americans by 10%. It helped the poor people. And while only cutting taxes to the top 1% by 0.04%. After the tax cuts, the rich paid a larger, not smaller share of income taxes. Those are the facts. And the Liberal Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy estimates that the combined federal, state, and local taxes are still quite progressive. From the Liberal Institute, it found that in 2020, the top 1% paid a 34% tax rate, and the poorest 20% of the Americans paid an average 20% cumulative tax rate. So the data also shows the highest income taxpayers are the only group that pay a larger share of the total taxes than their share of total income. So take a look at Joe Biden's proposed tax hikes. Take a look at this. So the top 1%, we're looking at the tax rate. Corporate tax, 21% is going to go to 26. Individual income is going to go from 37 to 39. Capital gains is going to go from 20 to 25. So, let's delve deeper into Joe Biden's plan. So President Biden wants to give the IRS $80 billion in new funding. This funding will add 87,000 new IRS agents that Biden claims will squeeze taxpayers for an additional $787 billion. It will also allow the agency to audit and harass more taxpayers. A major way the agency will do this is through the new $600 reporting deal. This is what some people think. Not only does this reporting requirement include the inflows and outflows of bank loans and investment accounts of virtually every individual and business, but it also includes third-party providers like Venmo, Cash Apps, PayPal. So opposition is rising to this measure that is included in this massive $3.5 trillion spending bill authorizing the federal government through the IRS to monitor every single bank account, to reduce tax fraud. That's the overall arching goal. So simply put, the American Families Plan calls for banks and other federal institutions to report more than just the taxpayer's interest earned, the capital gains and losses. Banks and other financial institutions would also be required to report aggregate account outflows and the inflows. In other words, the IRS would know about all your bank accounts, whether you earn income on that account or not, how much is in that account in a given year, and how much was transferred in and out of the account. That's crazy. That's pretty micro. It is unclear how that would work, but what is clear is that the new reporting obligations will create a massive compliance effort on the part of financial institutions and eliminate a massive blind spot that the IRS is currently enduring. Absolutely. If the proposal to require financial institutions to increase reporting to include account balances, all the inflows and the outflows is passed, there is no question it will increase taxes collected, obviously. Both self-reporting and audit outcomes will likely be improved. However, defending against the IRS exam can be very, very stressful, and also it's costly. So the Biden administration and Congress should work together to ensure that taxpayers who simply move funds between accounts are not, audited slowly as a result of the proposed increase in financial reporting obligations for the financial institutions. I mean, this is, because it's going to be so micro, you want to go after someone, it's really great. So nonetheless, privacy right advocates are concerned the provision encroaches on the Fourth Amendment, while banks, they're opposed to it, opposed to the measure. They're largely opposed because it imposes significant new reporting requirements. That's from the Daily Mail. Also, opponents say such a measure would hurt poor Americans most while causing others who have the means to move their assets offshore accounts. And that's exactly right. It's going to hurt the little guy. People with the cash, and I'm talking over 100 mil. So in addition to President Joe Biden, the measure is supported by the IRS Administrator Charles, Treasurer Secretary Janet Yellen, and several Senate Democrats, in particular Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who view it as a vital element of an $80 billion tax compliance push. A May report from the Treasury Department claimed that the government missed out on collecting $600 billion in owed taxes in 2019, a figure that would raise to $700 billion in a decade, or 15% of all income taxes. So the report claimed that the proposal would not have much effect on complicit Americans, but for non-compliant taxpayers, this regime would encourage voluntary compliance. Voluntary. But opponents, like Patrick Hedges, Vice President of Policy at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, says the proposal slams up against the Fourth Amendment privacy guarantee and would most likely hurt vulnerable Americans the most. The IRS is first and foremost a law enforcement agency, and the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable, as we all know, search and seizures in pursuant of looking for wrongdoing and criminal actions. So he says he thinks it's going to run into severe Fourth Amendment headwinds. He told the Daily Mail. He also said that the proposal will hurt poor Americans. I agree with that 100%. Disproportionately, it's going to hurt the poor Americans. You're going to push more folks into small cash transactions. You're going to push more banking offshore. The big fish, the big players out there do not have sizable assets that are eligible for taxation offshore, he said. So, this is ultimate, regressive tax. You're going to end up punishing the worst among us. The lower income folks in this country have historically been the target of aggressive IRS audits because they don't have the CPAs and the lawyers to be able to fight back. Those were his thoughts. And, I agree. I don't see why you need to be going after people, that they're just the average Joe, and start, looking at them on $600 payments. So banks are pushing back too. So in a letter to the Senate Finance Committee, Subcommittee on Taxation and Oversight, the American Bankers Association countered on this new reporting requirement for financial institutions would impose cost and complexity that are not justified by the potential and high uncertainty benefits. They state, we believe additional reporting requirements guided by subjective criteria have privacy and fairness implications and the potential to put financial institutions in a difficult position with their account holders, the letter noted further. So the IRS has a record of mismanagement and corruption. In their opinion, it has routinely failed to protect taxpayer data. Rather than being given new responsibilities, the IRS needs to reform so that it can better assist taxpayers by rejecting this amendment. Senate Democrats have made every taxpayer even more vulnerable to the IRS targeting harassment, and it's a violation of privacy in their opinion. That's the letter that they wrote on their stance. So there's both sides to it. I think it's very sticky. It's unfortunate that both sides of the parties, the Democrats and Republicans, have politicized everything, and the IRS was politicized. It was in the media. It was that the IRS was politicized by the Democrats on the Obama administration. I'm sure on the other side, over history, from my readings, the Republicans have used federal institutions for political purposes. Of course, so both sides have done that. I think it's wrong. These need to be separate entities, just like our military. It doesn't need to be involved in the political process, but it happens, and it's never going to change. Everything is so political now and so hyperbolic. these institutions have been weaponized, and they will be weaponized depending what administration is in there. And the fact is, companies like Apple and these companies, they don't pay taxes. They route through Ireland and get away with it. So, I'm talking the big ballers. Under 100 million, you're not a big baller. I'm talking the big, big ballers. We talk about the Saudis. You got trillions out there. There's a lot of money out there, and the people in this country can offshore it, and they're not going to pay taxes. And then the most vulnerable, I do agree with that argument, are going to be affected by this. So it is a gray area. I'm all for the IRS monitoring, making sure monies aren't taken, people taking advantage of the tax code, because people do take advantage of the tax code. I pay a lot of taxes. I'm a tax-paying citizen. So, but it's just interesting to see, the people, the ultra wealthy, the 1% are paying a lot of taxes. And then there's another group, the 0.1%, that get away with it and offshore their stuff. And they'll never be able to go after those people. But it is a gray area. And I see both sides of the argument. But it's interesting. And we'll see how this pans out. Take care. Be kind. Be happy. Ciao.